Hey everyone, Indonesia's book reader here. Today I want to talk about three-body problem by cixin. I've never heard of three-body problem previously, so when I heard a lot of noise about its Netflix adaptation, I thought I'd get ahead of it and read the book first since there's rarely been any good sci-fi lately. The story of the book itself opened in 1967 with a gruesome murder of a 15-year-old girl in the hand of the Red Guard when she was waving the red flags on top of a building. These are during the Cultural Revolution Civil War led by Mao Zedong, which pushed to outroot traditional China. Ye Zhitai, a physicist who teaches physics and of course general relativity by Einstein, was one of the last survivors of the captured scientists at that time. The Red Guard failed to break him, so they keep on torturing him. During his last torture session, because of an emotional outburst from some of the Red Guard, Ye Zhitai was lynched to death in front of his wife and children. His wife Xiaoling goes mad, and his daughter Ye Wenji changed forever. 2 years later, Ye Wenji met Bai Mujin during the forest cutting in the Greater Kingdom Mountain, where she was given a silent spring, a book written by Rachel Carson that is considered to be a huge influence to the environmental causes. The book and the event of her father's death led her to a horrifying belief that settled itself deep in her. Is it possible that the relationship between humanity and evil is similar to the relationship between the ocean and an iceberg floating on its surface? Both the ocean and the iceberg are made of the same material. That the iceberg seems separate is only because it is in different form. In reality, it is but a part of the vast ocean. It was impossible to expect a moral awakening from humankind itself, just like it was impossible to expect humans to live off the earth by pulling up on their own hair. To achieve moral awakening required a force outside the human race. This talk determined the entire direction of Ye's life. Unfortunately for Wenji, she helped Bai Mujin copy his letter to cease the wood cutting, which he then used to sell Ye Wenji to the army to save himself because the letter apparently triggered some political minefield. While this put her one more into the destructive path of the government that killed her family, it also put her into an older colleague's path, a graduate of her father's teacher, and he invited her into a classified scientific project that will change the tone of the three-body problem novel. She'll have to work in a mysterious radar pig, but she also won't be allowed to ever leave the place. And that's the prologue of the story. We then had a major time skip to more than 4 decades later, where we'll see the world through our main protagonist, Wang Miao, a nanomaterial researcher who is currently having a hostile conversation with a rude police detective named Xi Xiang. He'll find out that some of his colleagues have taken their own life leaving a single note. All the evidence point to a single conclusion. Physics has never existed, and will never exist. I know what I'm doing is irresponsible, but I have no choice. Wang Miao will get embroiled in a large scientific conspiracy that might decide not just his own fate, but also the world at large, while also trying to solve the mystery of the virtual game Three-Body, where the world goes through many scenarios of destruction. The writing of the book is very young adult, where instead of letting the scene explain itself, there will always be a character monologuing the explanation of the scene. For example, let's take Cixin. Cixin is very annoying when he appeared, so there's a monologue about how annoying he is. Cixin is very observant, so there's a monologue saying how observant he is. Someone is calling Cixin Dashi or Big C, so there's a monologue explaining that it's his nickname. Which is fine if you don't mind, it's just a writing style that I've outgrown personally from reading and enjoying a lot of young adult. And since it's a sci-fi series, there's a lot of ideas introduced in the book which will slow the story a bit, which to be fair comes with the genre territory. Some of this also includes a lot of scientific terms, real or made up, at least with a lot of character and organization introduction where not all of them are introduced well and you have yourself a slow start that can be a slog. So this is not accounts for the book, but there's a scientific term that refers the author of previous book, but it's just something mentioned in passing and won't affect the writing at all. Just a small bonus for his fans which I think is nicely done. For the character writing, I think Ye Wenji is the best and the most interesting character in the book. She was immediately isolated from everything and everyone she knew at the start of the story. Her family are gone, and the things she spent her entire life learning she had to throw away. She basically had to abandon her identity in order to survive, and when she tried to open up to someone, she was betrayed instead. But still, despite everything she's been through, she nonetheless moved forward. We're told just enough about her to care about her, but also still makes her a mystery. She left such a strong impression that the real main character after the time skip, Wang Miao, seems much worse in comparison. While in Ye Wenji part, all the characters including her are throwaway characters due to the nature of the time skip, but they work well not just because of the short time of the prologue, but how these side characters are affecting her and the story. But in Wang Miao's case, because all the rest of the story is on him, the throwaway characters are more annoying than they should. For example, Wang Miao apparently has a wife and son, but they don't add anything much to the story besides being the wife and son. They were not even named while their tireless neighbors have a name. What makes him being married even weirder is that the story focuses more on him having a crush at another scientist that are already married. The author really wants you to know that he is in love with this other already married character. But this doesn't affect his character or the story at all. There's just no reason on him being a married man with a son. Let's just say he's not Wong Kar-wai's in the mood for love. If you take his wife and son away from the story, nothing changes at all. Which, if you read until the end of the story, that is basically what happened. It's like even the author forget that they exist. Because after a certain point, they didn't even make any appearance at all. And it's not just them. You really can't just replay the main character Wang Miao himself with anyone else. There were a lot of scenes with Wang Miao because the story is told from his point of view, but most of the time he's not reacting to anything even when he's in the scene. And if you realize this, it kinda takes you out of the story. If you read the book, you'll quickly realize that there are a lot of events where Wang Miao are just standing, not talking, and not helping. He's just there T-posing, I guess, waiting for his limit break bar to fill in while the event unfolds. This happens in both the real world and also in the three-body world, which ruins a lot of the scene and makes the pacing off because some of the scene you don't feel the impact since Wang Miao also doesn't feel the impact. This is also exaggerated further because of another major character, Xixin, the road policeman. There's not really any justification to the story and character on why Xixin is supposed to be really annoying, besides to stretch the story for him to interrupt the flow of the story and make other characters angry at him and tell him to shut up. And also other than some scene where either he overreacted to things or other people overreacted to him, he's just mostly normal. It always feels like a melodrama each time the author tried to paint him as being annoying. It also just makes his character feel inconsistent. And between the lack of reaction from Wang Miao and the overreaction of Xixin, it makes the pacing feels awful at times. What the book did really well is make a compelling story on what happened when physics don't matter and anything just goes. Wang Miao started seeing a countdown at the corner of his eyes. He goes to a world where historical characters are not where they're supposed to be. The sun, there's 3 suns in the sky that went by in a matter of seconds, burning everything it touches. People can turn into leather where they're dehydrated, roll them up, save them in a closet, and turn them back to a person by soaking them in water. Where the universe is flickering a Morse code that also counts down the number that Wang Miao is seeing, as if when the time reaches 0, they'll come for him. While not all of them will be answered at the end of the story, most of them are interesting enough to remind me of some of Doctor Who past episodes. And besides the conspiracy of the government experiments aimed at space, there's also another conspiracy that is slightly based on reality of a group that are trying to discredit science and make scientists either kill themselves or give up and become dumber than regular people. This kinda make me realize ain't no way this book will become a conspiracy in real life, because 1. The book logic only works when you have at least surface level of understanding in science, especially physics, and 2. Current conspiracy believers won't admit that they belong to a group of bad people that are trying to discredit science so people become dumb. The book brings a lot of interesting idea and concept that was kinda dragged down by how ass the character writing is, but the book is saved not only on some of these scientific ideas that are explored through the story, but also the really good twist in the story. What if doomers who have given up on humanity found a way to doom us all? What if they found a button that can end human suffering by ending us all? What if they already pressed that button? That horrifying talk is what will carry the story. If there's one sentence in the book that describes it, it will be, "In the face of madness, rationality was powerless." Also on a slightly more spoiler note, the book also tackles interesting scenario on how encounter with intelligent alien will affect us when it happens, where their cartels have scale or their technological advancements surpass us enough for space travel. A somewhat ideal scenario is in Lilith's brood trilogy that I've covered previously, where they are pacifists who come to save us from extinction and integrate themselves with our culture. But this book explores one of the most non-ideal scenarios, where the coming aliens are warmongers, where life have no value to them and only existing matter. Aliens that will exaggerate our differences and will make people who won't accept each other's differences become worse people. As I mentioned briefly at the start, the series has been adapted by Netflix, and while I do wish the character writing is much better since my expectation of the book was high because the trailer got 10 million views, But there's some hope that they will fix the character writing and a few other flaws in the adaptation, if we're lucky and they didn't flop it, of course. But besides that, I think the concept of the story and some of its execution are very interesting, and I hope the sequels have better storytelling execution because I'm heading there next after this. I give this a 2.75. What do you think? Are you gonna read it? Did I miss anything? Leave your thoughts in the comment below and subscribe to the channel. That's about it.